Welcome to angelseeds.com. I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks in Photoshop. Today, right here, I have some font open. And I wanted to show you that when you click on the text tool, and then you click and drag, you'll get a layer. It'll make a layer over here. And you can see it says Angel Seeds. So if I click on the T in the tools, and then I click and I drag down, I get this little moving box. This little, you can hardly see it probably in the video, but it's a little box. And I click and drag and I can see my cursor there. Now if you can't see your cursor, sometimes it's tiny. So just go up to the top here and hold your mouse and it says set the font size. You can click on this arrow and you can choose one of these numbers, or you can just let's see, orange. So I'm typing a word in and I'll make the text black. I'll click and select the text, and then in the little color box I'll click down and that will open up this color mixer box, and I can drag this around. So I'll make it black so you can see it. And then as long as you're selecting on it, it should change your font. I think it'll change it once you deselect, after you click your arrow, and I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so the one thing I just wanted to show you was that you can select your font, come up here to the top, and see this little T. You click and drag on it, and it'll just click your mouse and drag your mouse, and it'll scroll your font, your text big or small. And then while you're in the text horizontal or text tool, you'll have a little character box right up here in a paragraph box. And in the character, you can do the same thing. You can drag, but what you want to do is make sure that you have your font selected. And then on the T's and the A's, all of these little guys, you can click and drag. And we wouldn't see that one unless we click on the arrow and drag this down. Which is an orange box. Now if I click on select just the box, now I can click on this T, this double A, and click and drag, and it will move my text down. So all these little icons are really tiny. You can also use the drop down arrow, but you can only get to 72 points. You want it bigger. So just remember, you can slide it and then you can scale it down. So you don't have to type in a separate, you can actually resize your font in the same box. Or you can just click the check arrow, get back off of the text tool and onto the arrow selection tool, and now your options are going to change a little bit. But now you can slide it up, and now when you move the box, you can resize it. So you have to remember you're going to be on two different tools. When you're on the text tool, you're going to have certain options. It's asking if I want to apply, and I'm going to say yes. So I can get back on the text tool and edit this and move the box back up here if I want it closer or whatever. And so if I wanted to change the color, I would do it in the character menu here. Well, you'll see if I'm in the character box menu, when I'm on the text tool, I can change the text. See? I'm not sure. I think I can do it. Yeah, as long as it's selected. Now I can use the swatches and just drag up. So like that. So I just want to remember to select it. If I want to change the font at the top, I can do that. And then I can do red or whatever. So you just want to remember that as soon as you want to edit it, you're on the text tool, and you'll be able to move the box around. But it's going to have different options. It will disappear, and you'll have to drag the box out. And then when you're done doing that, then you can click on the back up here on this move tool. So you can go back and forth. So what's really cool about this is I just found this file, this orange, and this is the very first project I ever worked on in Photoshop. And I picked up a book at the library, a Photoshop book, and I picked a chapter, and this was the class. And I just found this file. It's kind of cool. And so on the layers box, you can hide things with the T, with the I. And then one of the things I think that is really important about doing font is if you want to add effects to your font, after you've chose the font you want, the color you want, the size you want, then when you over here in the it says orange box, it gives it its name for you. I would right click and duplicate the layer. And that's what I do a lot of, duplicating everything. If you make a mistake, you always have a duplicate and you can turn one off or on. But for me, I duplicate everything, images, and this is one of the things I was going to show you in this, is now it's duplicated, and I can go in to the orange and make it, change the color by selecting the text tool and doing what I want with it. If I wanted just to change it all to blue or something, then I can do that. And then get back on the arrow tool to move it again. And then I could layer it over the top like that. Now while I'm on this layer, I have opacity. So I can just, same thing as up at the text tool, dragging your mouse on the T and the A's and all the different options. You have to play around. You select your layer, and then you have opacity right here. So you can make it transparent, either layer. And then I'll play with that a ton. Turn it back up, and then the other thing is I can start playing with the effects that are on the layers that affect the layers right here above. So we have this menu right here, and you can click and try all of these ones and see what it does, see what you like. It's a huge way of adding effects, saturation, and then playing with the opacity to see if it does anything different. And then you can go to each layer and add, and you're going to see the biggest changes when you put an effect on each layer. So you can right click a layer and duplicate it and do this all day long. And then if you want to select, say now you've got your font this way, right? And you want to move it, but you don't want to, move it just one of them. You can select a layer and then shift click select the second layer. Now you can click and move these around with your arrow move tool. Select, it's the move tool. And then also you want to turn on show transform controls and then auto select. Remember to use those up there at the top, because if I turn show handles off, I'm still going to be able to move it. It's not going to be able to see your box. And sometimes you want it on, sometimes you don't. And then on auto select, it helps you select it right on the canvas, not just over here in the layers. You can select one, shift select, and then so you can click auto select, and then that makes it so you can select on the canvas. Now, one other thing you're going to want to do is after you have these layers selected, I'm going to add one more. I'm going to duplicate one more layer. So if you want to change the name, just double click on the text on the layer, type it in, and then I'm going to turn one of them to normal. And then while you have just one layer selected, you can use your arrows on your keyboard to move your text if you want. You can do it by hand too, but if you just do it with your arrows, it'll nudge it just a little bit. So you can just select each one and kind of nudge them around until you're happy. And then I'm going to select one layer, shift select the rest. Then at the corner of my transform control box, there's these little corners. You can drag your mouse over the edges, and then you can see. And you want to, if I wanted to stretch this and keep it uniform so it doesn't stretch like that, I'll click up here on the no instead of the X at the top here. I'll say no. And I wanted it to move uniformly. I would hold my shift key down, and then I would stretch it like this. And I'm stretching it bigger so you can kind of see better what I'm doing. And okay, so let's say I'm really happy with that. And I'm like, okay, I really love that. That is so cool. All right. So what I would do is I would select all of these layers, and then I'd right click and I would say, actually it's not a right click. Now, this is tricky because you can hardly see this little icon. But where it says layers, all the way to the right on the corner of the top of the layers palette box, I'll pull it out so you can see. Okay, there's my layers palette box, so you can see that. And I'm clicking and dragging around it, and way over here, right here at this corner from the layers, is a tiny little icon. You can hardly see it. There's 3 little lines and a tiny little arrow. Click on that. Now, after I have my 3 layers selected, I would click on this, and then I would say new group from layers. So it's going to group these 3 layers for me. And if you choose new group, you'll just get a little envelope that you have to drag it into. Where you choose new group from layers, it'll ask you to name it, and you can make a little color for it if you want. It'll be orange. And leave pass through and opacity. You can change the opacity here or right on the layer. We'll leave it to and then just orange box. I'll say okay. Now what it's done is, now if I want to put this layer palette back in, I grab the top, click on it, drag it over, and put it, just wait till the blue line changes to where I want it. And I actually want to grab this and put it right there. Oops. Okay, there we go. And then I can move it down. I can click and slide it down. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see that here, but now I have orange box and I have all of these here. So if I click the eye, you can see I'm turning them off. So I have 3 layers here. Now, all of these layers are still in their text form and the way we made them, so they can all be re-edited. So now after I would make a box, I would close it, and then I would right click on my box and I would duplicate the group, just like you duplicate a layer. Okay. And then I would turn one off. So there's my font saved. So if I have to fix it or change it and edit it later, I have it all in a nice little folder. Now I have a new group. And what I'm going to do now, and you can do 1, 2 layers or 3 layers, or as many layers as you want. I'm going to select the layers, and actually, yeah, I'm going to do all 3. Sometimes I just do 1. Right click, and then I'm going to say, what am I going to say? I think I'm going to say rasterize. Now, you can see all of a sudden they're each rasterized on each layer, and you can see, well, maybe you can't see, but now they're in a different form than the old box. If you look at the first orange box we made, see they're all white and they say T on them. And they're hidden. They're hidden. I'll pull them up. Let's see. I'll arrow them up faster. If you hold shift, it'll move faster. So there we have the first ones. And now what we have is we have these rasterized. And now what we can do when they become rasterized, they're transparent. They're on a transparent layer. We can see that. So are the other ones, but they just show you in the layers palette. And now what we can do is we can add even more effects to them. So I like to make duplicates of everything as I go. So now that they're, you can even change the name of the box and say orange box raster. And then I'll minimize that, and I'll duplicate the whole group again, and I'll turn that one off. I'll turn the other one off. Okay, so now I have, they're still, as you can see, in separate form. Now I click edit, undo, step back, because I selected and moved that. So, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift select all of the 3, because now I have another copy, and merge layers. And it kind of changed the effect. And if you want, let's see, one of the ways to keep it from doing that changing effect is just go to the top layer and then say merge down the first one, and then merge down the last one. Well, that didn't work either. Edit, undo. Edit, step back. So, but that is one way to test it, to keep it, because you're getting an effect on all of them. And sometimes when you add the effect to each layer, you're going to have a change. So I think shift selecting them and then merge visible. Okay, there we go. So there's little ways to try it. Did you see how we did that? I chose the time before that. Oops, that's not the right one. I'm losing my layers already. This is what happens when wait, what happens? There's the first box, there's the second box. And maybe it just deleted. Edit undo. Okay. I just undid it. Now I see all three of my boxes. My first one, RASTORIZE box. Close that, and then I'm inside the orange raster box, copy, and I'm shift selecting, and then I'm right click, and instead of merging just the layers, I'm going to merge invisible. And I think, what is that? Oh, I think this is, oh, I see what it maybe did. I accidentally merged it with my orange. I don't want to do that. Edit, step back. So I'm going to click shift and I'm going to drag these out of this folder. Right there. I think I might have been having an issue because I was in the folder. So I'm going to try this again. Merge. Oh, I think it does want to merge with everything. It does for some reason. Okay. So edit undo. I'm just going to go merge. Visible? No. No. Okay. Whatever it takes to figure this out. Sometimes, you do this all day and you don't even know what you're doing. But really cool things happen. So merge layers. There we go. I merged them. But I think that I did lose a little bit of my time. Okay. Doesn't matter. You just play. Okay, now I'm getting to a point, and we've just merged our raster layers and we lost a little bit of effects. But now what I would do, now what you can do, since you kind of have them all together in one layer, we've merged them. Now you can add your filter. Plus you can do whatever you want with it too. And you can make a copy, which is what the first thing I would do is I would make a copy. Oh, okay, so duplicate there. Okay. So now we see we have duplicates, and now we can add the effects that are here, and you can also write. How do I do that? I think there's blending options. So you can go and you can right click on your layer, and now you can get more filters and more effects. You can play all day long. And then see, now you just have to remember that you got to rasterize your font. You got to rasterize your font so that you can add all this cool stuff. So you can do drop shadow, And then you can play around with all this stuff. The opacity to your heart's content, outer glow, satin, and then go crazy in here forever and play with all this. And say, okay, and then if you made a copy, you'll have little eyes. But if you have a copy and you hate it, you just go back to it. And then you make as many copies as you need. That's what I do. I just go copy layer crazy on everything. Okay, and then on top of all of that, we'll just turn off that one. Turn this one on. This one doesn't have anything on it. I did that on there. And that's what you do to see what your layer did. You can kind of see what it's doing to your layers. Okay, so on top of the right click, blending options, this, all of that. You can go to normal. You can add the general blending here too. It's the same one that shows in the palette, I think, or whatever. Okay, so on top of all of those filters you can play with until you go crazy. Now you can go over here. I'll turn these others off. And you can come over here with your RASTORIZE font and go filter. And then you have all of these filters. Artistic, all of these ones. And this takes a while, but once you get the swing of it, you'll just go, oh, this is fun. You'll just sit and rasterize and distort and to your heart's content. And you'll just go crazy, and then you'll add layers and filters until you can't see straight anymore. Well, my favorite one is poster edges. But now, if you can't get to artistic in some of these, then you'll have to, I think you have to do there's a function call. Sometimes if you don't see your filter options available, they're whited out, or then, yeah. But as soon as you just go to one of them, you're going to be in here, and you can blow it up or make it small. And then you can play in here with your poster edges and all your stuff. You can do all this forever and a day. That looks cool. And then there's tons of them. And then what I do is I go like that, and I change them, and then I duplicate copies. You get it? I just duplicate and duplicate. And the layers, you can just click and drag over to the top, so that if you want to see what something might look like below or underneath, and then click the transparency like so. And then, can you see this? I just thought, oh, maybe I should blow this up. Okay, so then you can play with the transparency and go back and do the more of the effects here and just go crazy, crazy, crazy. And then I do that a lot. And then I just copy back. I duplicate layers. And I do all that. And then remember, you can delete them too. Right click, delete. If you get too many, your PC might slow down if you get too many layers in it. So that's just one thing on font in here, or a bunch of stuff on font. If you're on the move tool and you have a mouse, scroll wheel or a mouse, you can click, drag, slide in and out. And then your space bar is your hand, so you can move it like this. It's really fun in here. It's really cool. And then also there's but that's the biggest thing I wanted to show you. I'm going to click this off. Well, they're together right now, so I'll just put them into a group. Oh, it's not right click. Sometimes you'll be like, what? Where is it? You forget, and it's that little arrow. New group from layers. And then it'll be in a folder, and then you can hide it. And so one of the things I was going to, now this was drawn, I'm just going to click off some of this stuff. This was drawn in layers, and there's a pen tool that you can use to manipulate stuff, and I'll go over the pen tool. I love the pen tool in this program. It's really powerful. And then what we did was we drew in things separately, but you can see we added an effect to this area. And then on the leaves, these were his little templates that he had in here, which were cool. And they were kind of blown up big to give you an idea as how to use the pen to make it easier to draw in here and fill and use all the tools. So there's tons of stuff. But yeah, I remember I was using a different app, and someone kept pushing me onto Photoshop, and I really didn't want to change apps because Photoshop is so expensive. But God made a way. So that was really cool. And then, so cool. Okay, so that was all I wanted to show you. Oh, I wanted to show you how you can also, I was showing you how to use all the effects on the font. I've got a bunch of files open. You can have lots of files open as long as you watch your computer. Up here. Oh, one of the things I was going to show in this is, okay, one of the biggest things that took me a while to learn how to do, because it used to be there were no tutorials, but still. Okay, say you want to do an image like this. And, I don't know if I went over this. Yeah, this is really important. Should have gone over this. Anyways, if you pull an image in, and you open an image, and you click on your arrow tool, and you can't move it or adjust it, it will say your layer's locked. And then you go to your layer, and it says background, and there's a little lock, and you're like, oh, try to click the lock. You right-click on the layer, and you think it would say unlock, but it does not. What it says is it says layer from background and duplicate layer. If you turn it to layer from background, it'll unlock it. I always duplicate the layer. Just right-click duplicate layer. And that way I always have a copy. If I start messing up one, I've got another one right here. And then I just turn it off. And you do have to be selected on the layer that you're going to be editing. You know, you have to be on it. Sometimes you're like, whoa, what's going on here? And then you're not on the layer or some silly thing like that. Okay, but I was going to say from this image, and to make a layer, there's just a little layer button. I think you can just right click in here, but down here at the bottom of the layers palette, and if your layers palette gets lost, just go to window, go layers, and you can see it's on with a little check mark. You can always find your stuff in window. Like, where's this? Where's that? What happened to this? And it'll also show these are all the files I have open up top. This is a really fun program. Okay, so turning that off, and I'm adding a new layer right here, see? And then the other ones are off. So I was going to show you, now you want to be on your Move tool. So you want to open files, you can file open them and they'll open next to them. I think if you want to put one, so I could say file open, it's just going to open another file next to it, like, you know, right there. Let's see. But if you want to bring one right into the place you're working at, you know, from your hard drive, you say place, you go file place, I think. And then you can go in and you just grab a file and then open it. And yep, there it is right there. And then I think, what do you do? Okay, so then you've got your file in there. And if you want to move this uniformly, remember to hold the shift key down when you drag. And I think, what do you do then? Yeah, then you just say, click the X and say OK. And then that gets rid of that. I love that. And now you've got your picture in there. Okay, so now, shift, there we go, drag. And then click the X, yes or no. Now, another way to get pictures in here, if you have a bunch of files open, and let's say I'm working over here on this. This is my, you know, and I'm working really hard to get things done. There's little tiny arrows to collapse those windows. Just play with them. And let's say, okay, let's just say that I have, wait, I'm dragging out a little piece of this on this file. You'll get here. And then I go edit, copy, and then edit, paste. And if you'll notice, it made a new layer and it copied that there. So let's say I'm working with different pieces of stuff from other files or other images. This is really important because I remember spending a lifetime trying to figure this out. And I click on my arrow tool, make sure my show trans, and I can click this now. And then I'm over here in the banner, and I'm getting stuff from other picture files, and I don't want to import them all in. I just open them, and then I start working with the, you know, a different stuff that I have open, like this. Then I select it, and I click, and I drag it up to the file. But I don't let it go on my mouse. I keep sliding till I'm all the way down here, and then boom. So this is a really big file I had open. And then I can drag my pictures in like that, and you'll see it automatically made another layer. So that's tricky. That's a tricky thing. And I don't know what to call it, but it's pretty simple to do. That's really cool when Photoshop is able to do that. And you'd be on the selection tool. You click the rectangle marquee tool, which is the selector tool. And then there's also an arrow right there that you can choose a round one, a square one, a rectangular. And then there's little tricks where you can hold the shift key and it'll keep it uniform. Hold the shift key down when you drag. So if I wanted just these flowers, and then I can just say edit, copy, and I don't know, I don't think I can paste it into another file, but I'll try. Then edit, paste. Oh yeah, I can do that too. So that's really cool. But if you, let's say you have something like this on a layer already. And I was thinking, well, how do I get a layer to a layer? So I would select the layer, get on the arrow tool, and then click down and hold it and drag up to, let's see, yeah, oops, something like here. And there, it brought it in and it made a new layer. It's humongous. And the opacity was down and whatever. But, so that can be really helpful. And because a lot of times you need reference photos when you're working or drawing. You know, or maybe you're working with photos, which is huge, of course. It's PhotoShop. And you want to bring in photos. Okay. So the same thing goes here as with the font. And if I want to select this, deselect this in the background, what I have, you just go select, up at the top, deselect. And then, okay, so this works just like with the font, and that is this is humongous, this image here. So let me show you this. Okay, so what I have to do to get this is drag this to the edge and see this little corner, finally pull it over, and then shift, start sliding it down. You have to maneuver on the canvas area. So that's how I would do it if it was that big. But you can just resize. You can, once you bring an image in and resize it, keeping it uniform, you hold the shift key down, which is okay. So there we have it. All right, something to work with. Okay, so just like with the font that I went over, what I do a lot of is duplicate layer, because I know well enough to know that I'm going to bust something. So I make a backup right in here, and if I mess up something I really liked, trying to get all those different functions or those filters, those effects, those, what do we call it? What were you calling it? Then we want to have a backup, and then you can just turn it off. And okay, so then I would just make another copy. Duplicate layer. Okay, just like with the font. So I've got 2 layers, and then I would then start to add the effects if I want it here. But you can just go forever with effects. So the effects are here, they're normal, and one of the things I did not show you, along with the effects that I do all the time, is, I'm going to turn one of these off. Actually, I'll turn them both off, and I use the bear, and I did make a layer of them too. So now, this is something I do all the time. Like if I go paint something, then I'll go, oh, then I'll bring it after, I'll flatten the layers or whatever, and I'll bring it in, and then here's another area where you can add effects, which is huge. This is what I do all day long. So let's say I bring a photo in, and that's probably the huge thing, is if you bring a photo in. I'll show you that after I show you this. So the first thing I would do is I'd be like, oh, this is really flat. Then I come up here to image adjustments. This is probably the biggest function I ever use, is I go to brightness or exposure first. And I go, oh, this image is so dark. You know, sometimes you'll have a dark image. So the first thing I would do is brighten it up and bring the contrast up. Sometimes that's all I do. And then that's under image. And that's kind of a hard place to find that. And the other place is exposure. And then all the rest. Hue saturation is super fun. You go in here, especially with the little guy. That's what I was going to show you. Is he was made in vectors, so he's going to be, you know, like this. And we see a lot of this in animation and in movies and stuff. That's my bear. And I actually drew him in Photoshop. And I lost the original file, and I'm always so sad when I do that. But I live and learn, and I just tell myself, you know what? Angel seeds, draw again, redo it, and get better. It's still painful. But you know what? With God, all things are possible. And He has a special love and plan for all of us. So there's that. And I would do something like that. And then you can play with that till your heart's content. Click OK. And then see, because I made a layer, I can, oh, I turned it off, but now I can play with the opacity on it. And then I can duplicate it. This is what I would do for hours on end. And then I would go to the filters. Then I would go to artistic. I usually go to my favorite one first. Because when you, any one of those brings up the same palette that you can switch to. Then I would go into PhotoShop and fit on screen, because sometimes down here you can blow it up to see what you're doing a little better. And there's a little thing, so fit on screen, or you can do actual pixels. We'll into that later, but fit on screen. And then we start playing with these guys, clicking on them, and then right next to them we have, you know, these little drag tools. You just drag in and out, and you can play with them a little bit more. And there's the distort and the sketch and the glass. This is fine. I go, okay, I like it. I save it, and then I copy another layer, and I add an effect, or I bring the opacity down. And there you have it. You just do what you like. You can add more effects here, that, just forever with it. It's really fun. And then just remember, file, you know, save as, or just get in the habit. File save as, you can do, you know, 1 copy, 2 copies of your files. You really like it a lot. Then you can go back, because you have to save, just like you have to make copies, especially if your PC crashes. And then just while you're going, Control S will save it on your keyboard, which you probably know that function, just have to remember it. So there we go. It's so much fun. And I think that in the next video I'll go over let's see, my next video I'll go over brushes. We'll see what I go over. There's just a lot. But first off, when you just want to play with photos, that's really cool. There's just so much in here. I love it. This is one image this is a small old image, but you can make some of your image smaller or larger. But this is one I would come in, first thing I would do, image adjustments, and then I'd go to probably exposure, and I'd edit the colors right away. It's an older file, And then I would look at what they look like on a couple different screens. And yeah, so, okay, so that's what I would do. And then I would start to play with it, duplicate layer. Okay, and one of my biggest, most favorite things to do is, and I'll show you, I just make a copy. I'm going to make another copy. I'll turn one of them off to save it. And then, you know, file, save as, and then you can save it as a new image. But one of my favorite things to do would be to click this. I go to filter, and I always do this. I go to the blur, and I go to Gaussian blur, and I blur it a lot. And I used to ask Essie, do you do this? And then that gives me a background like so. Then I can select it with the arrow tool, and I can either stretch it out or move it around, or just nudge it over with my arrow keys like this. Da, 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 da. And then I've got a shade, and if I like it, of course I click the X, and then I duplicate it again, and it'll make it darker like that. And yeah, so, and then I would play with that. So I do the same thing with the font and with the images, whether it's a photograph or just one of my graphics, my art. You can see I drew her. She was one of my first favorite characters that has a name, and I named her Callie. I love that name. And so then, okay, if I want, I can duplicate again, which I like to do, and then select that layer, and then go image, adjustments, and then I can go to hue saturation like I was showing you with the bear, and I can play with the hue. Maybe I want it to be pink, more pink. Maybe I want it darker, maybe I want it lighter. So there's also colorize where it would just stay one color. But anyways, you can play with this forever in a day. And so that's really cute. She really just needs an umbrella, and she needs to have an umbrella and something that says, how about a cup of coffee? Yeah, with raspberry syrup. So, okay, so this is the huge place where the filters are, and then the image adjustments, the image size, the rotations, all this. But right here, this hidden palette is full of awesomeness. The photo filter, black and white, color balance, hue. I love this stuff, and I could play forever in here. And so that is one thing that I would do always. And then also, here's a quick thing to know if you want to if you do, whoops, no good. Took my paths out of my spot. Those are the channels. You'll learn later what paths are. That's for the drawing pen. But let's see. Oh, so one thing I might want to do right away, I would grab the selector in the tools palette, and then I would add a new layer, but I'd select the bottom layer, because then the layers will come in down here. And then in this new layer, I would drag my selection tool all the way around my canvas, like so. You might not be able to see it, those moving lines. And then you get on the fill, the gradient tool, and the fill bucket are both there. You hold your key down, your mouse down, for the little boxes to come open. And I would grab the gradient tool and then I would maybe pick a color. Let's see. And you can see the gradient. You'll have your options from your tools, either up in the top bar and also over on the right. Like here you can, let's see, drag this. Oh, shoot. Anyways, we'll put this back over here. And then, so while I have it selected, if you're on the gradient tool, instead of the paint bucket, because if you just have the paint bucket, it'll fill. But with the gradient tool, then you can pick these little guys at top, and you can see your colors, and click and change the colors. You choose one of these little things, and then you click and drag. So I might do something like that right away. And then again, I want to tell you, if you want, you can add effects to that. Just duplicate the layer, okay, that you made. Also, deselect, because I've noticed that sometimes Photoshop will freeze or crash when you have the selection tool on. So now I have duplicated my layers, fill colors, see that? And now I can go dissolve and add the effect to it, or the opacity. But sometimes helps to just, first thing after you make a duplicate is go image, adjustments, hue balance, and then tweak it a little bit or change the color or make it darker or make it lighter, whatever. But you've got a difference there. And now when you add a light or an effect, you're going to get some cool stuff going on. Like, just turn the opacity up. We'll go to filter. And let's go to texture, mosaic tiles, see what it'll do. I think it'll affect it, yeah. So then I can play with that. I would just say, okay. And there I have an, I have an effect or a whatever on my thing. And then I would duplicate the layer again, like that. And now I can add a screen to it. And I can turn the opacity down. So I would start with something like that. And then there's a texture, there's a distorted whatever. And then on top of all of that, we can go right into what we can do with brushes. You don't even need a brush or anything. Like most of these older drawings I did without a pen. I did them in Photoshop and I did them in Flash. But you get what I'm saying. And then after you're done with that, you add your text. So it's just a lot of playing around. And then you can merge them together too. Like if you, this is one of the things that I just go nuts in here. So we just remember we select them, we shift select, and then we go up to our little icon and we say new group from layers and we say okay, and that made our group, and then we duplicate it. Okay, we have one saved, and now we have these three. Shift, and let's merge them. Merge layers. Okay, that worked that time. Stayed the same. There weren't any transparencies in it. So now we have that. The first three that we did, which was just a fill, and now we can duplicate it again. Duplicate layers. So now I've duplicated all, I've flattened them once. I started with a fill color, I flattened it. I just edited the color up here, image adjustment, hue saturation, and then boom, I have to make another layer. Okay, save the one like that. And with this guy now, I can go back to my filters, go to artistic, pick any one of these. It'll bring us to the same effect in place. Wow. And you can just sit here and do this. This is what I love to do. I sketch. And then you can play with them and get to know the ones you like and see what they do. And also you can play around with the stroke, that kind of thing. And I love to do this. Is so fun. I mean, this is so cool. This is such a glossing. And the textures at the bottom, they're little. There's the glass. Oh, I like the glass one too. So then I just say, okay. I just keep making them. And then I turn the opacity down if I like it. Or just delete it if I don't. Or, yeah, that one's okay. I'll make a duplicate layer. Okay, I'll turn it off. I'll add another effect on that, or filter. Effects and filters. Blur more, Gaussian blur, there's just tons of them. Clouds. These are weird effects. Sometimes you have to wait for your machine. So, you see, so fun. So, I think that is enough for today. This is going to take a while to download, but yeah, I may not be the best teacher, but the Lord is with me. He is my strength, and I am Angel Seeds right here, saying Merry Christmas and helping out my friends, and also want to be a blessing because I'm sowing up treasure, I'm storing up, I'm sowing up seeds in heaven, and I'm growing my treasures in heaven. So it's not all about me, it's all about Him, Jesus. And the kingdom of heaven is waiting for me. So now it just needs a little font. Oh, I was going to show you really quick on this one. I did this one in a bunch of different colors. But this is really fun to do this text with. Image. Adjustments. Hue saturation. Let's color down. Let's go to color down. So yeah. We can do all this cool stuff in here. Shadows. Highlights. And then add effects to this kind of thing. Duplicate. So, okay, I think that's enough for now. But now I'm hooked. So I can do layers. Alright. That's enough for now. I'm just going to go back and say we're Angel Seeds and we're learning and growing together. And I lost the image, so I guess, well, there's the pink one. Oh my goodness. So I don't know. So I need to go to my layers palette and I can't find it. So Windows, layers, there it is. And I need to duplicate duplicate, hide one, and then duplicate, and then add an effect, image adjustments, to saturation. There we go. Make a joyful noise, singing to the Lord. Make a joyful noise, singing to the Lord. Alright. AngelSeeds.com. Where are you? I've got text around here somewhere that says Angel Seeds. Trying to find it. Let's see. Oh, I think it's here. There it is. But also, I want to select this text and I want to bring it to, where is it? I think it's, no. Let's put it here for now. And then, one of the things we can do when we get too many files open is just minimize that. This is why we can find the tiny arrow. But I'm trying to find that. Not that one. Oh, there we go. So I wanted to bring the Angel Seeds to there. There we go. That goes nice. So you can drag the text around too. And that's another thing, is you can save a lot of time by, if you make a bunch of font or something that you like, you don't have to keep making it over. You can save it in one file and then, so shift and drag on the corner of your box. And then you can just drag it in from another folder. There we go. And then click like that, and then right click. And let's go back to, this is where's my layers? Window. Sometimes when you preview it, turn it back on, and get them close, and then I'll duplicate the font, and then I'll nudge it over a little bit with my keyboard, left and right mouses, and I think when it's selected like that, I can now change the color in it. Has to be on the, how come it wouldn't change? So it has to be, I can get back on this now, I think. It has to be selected. Okay, it has to be selected. So it wasn't a raster layer, so you'll learn that when you have things rastered, they don't always get affected the same way. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Nudge up, nudge left, nudge down. There we go. I like that. Okay. Perfect. See? Just fun, fun, fun. Alright, now, that would be a cool phone cover, wouldn't it? Only it needs to have a little Bible scripture on there. It says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding, but acknowledge the Lord in all of your ways, and He will make it prosper. Alright, goodbye for now. We're overseas.